Now,
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to your September 17th edition of AM Sports Live. I am Andrew Goldstein, and before I introduce my co-host for the day, we have just one or two housekeeping things to take care of. Number one is that I don't know what happened with the statistics on our last broadcast. They might have been broken, I certainly hope not, but we got about 400 listeners on that, which is by far the best we've ever done. So, thank you everybody for tuning in and supporting us as we ramble about football and pop culture and all the other stuff.
on the contrary, we may have broken the server.
Oh, we might have broken the server. That too. By the way, that's Matt Markow. Everybody,
Yeah,
our first-time listeners.
sorry for stepping on my own introduction, but yeah.
I know you're stealing my thunder, man.
Continue. I'm sorry.
All right, well, there's nothing major left before I introduce you. Just that this is the first broadcast where Matt actually has the interface open on his computer, and I'm in over Skype. So if there are any audio issues, apologies for that. I don't think there will be, but just in case, our apologies in advance.
And during the show, if any listeners want to contact us with questions and comments, how can they do that?
When you're listening to the live broadcast on Spreaker, there will be a little thought bubble icon or a little message icon right under the title. You just click that, it opens up a box, and you can type whatever you want in there. And then when you click enter, we have a corresponding button on the interface, and we will see it. And, if it's on topic, thoughtful, and generally not one of those YouTube comments that are just calling us idiots or things that we can't say on the show, then we'll answer it.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we've gotten many of those comments yet. I think we've got pretty good fans.
Yeah, we've got pretty good fans. We got no negative comments yet, which is, now that I say that, we're gonna get like 10 comments telling us what morons we are.
Please, no one's listening to us today. They're all playing GTA 5.
Oh, that's a good point. We picked the right day to do this then.
By the way, what do you think about that? You think you're gonna finally pop your GTA cherry?
I might. It's available for the 360, right?
It is, but it runs much better on the PS3. But still, I mean, I'm sure you must have heard about it just in your travels on the internet and
Absolutely. Like I heard that it already made back its operating budget just from pre-order sales.
and its budget was about 250 million or something. It's biggest, most expensive game ever made. But yeah, this seems like it could be one of the great games of all time.
And I keep seeing the pictures of the map, like compared to the GTA 4 map, and how
Which was incredibly huge, by the way.
which is roughly like six. It's roughly like 6 times as big now.
Sure, set in Los Angeles, so you know I'm gonna have fun with that. I just got back from there a couple months ago, so yeah.
Well,
So
I might get that. I love open world games.
yeah, it's weird. You kind of missed the boat on GTA, right?
Hmm.
You were too young when four came out, and then but now you're right in the sweet spot.
Right. Yeah, I might get it. I mean, what I might do is I might wait until after I've applied for all my colleges and done some significant stuff that's coming up for this month, and then like after a couple of weeks, that'll be my reward for getting through all of it, just picking up GTA 5.
Smart, because once I get the game, which will probably be around tomorrow, I'm not gonna do anything else. Homework wise, schoolwork wise, athletics
Except
wise.
for except for the Friday episode of AM Sports Live.
Oh, I actually might do that while playing the game.
Well, but here's the thing. Before we get into football, I wanted to toss this segment idea that we've been discussing out there for our listeners. We want to do our first running segment on the show called Bad Movie of the Month. And what we're hoping to do, like every second or third Friday, is to pick an atrocious movie, either in theaters or recently released a DVD or made 30 years ago, just wherever, just an atrocious movie, watch it, and then break it down for you guys with hopefully some corresponding YouTube clips.
Oh yeah, maybe something off Netflix also. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a new movie, like you said, but yeah, there's a ton of bad movies out there, and
And next month we already have Machete Kills on the list.
well, yeah, and that's going to be an enjoyable kind of B movie schlock fest. Well, when we went to see the Fast and Furious, and Taken 2, those movies are about as high up on the unintentional comedy scale as you can possibly get, right?
I don't even think you could put Fast and Furious on the unintentional comedy scale because they know they're doing it at this point.
Oh, you're right. It's very self-aware. I think Machete Kills is also very self-aware, also. But
Well, oh, by the way, hold on one second. Oh, okay. That was unprofessional. My some ESPN.com video is just going off in the background.
what's
So my
ESPN?
apologies for that. What?
I don't advertise other sports websites on this show.
Yeah, what's the? Well, you know what, ESPN, we gave you that one for free. If you want to get more mentions on this 100 listener average show, maybe you could kick us a couple of bucks. Drop me off a new copy of GTA 5 on my doorstep in the morning.
Was it Dick Vitale that said that ESPN sounded like some sort of foreign disease?
Yeah, yeah. The story goes in the ESPN book. He was talking with a friend and saying, like, the friend was saying, "Oh, I'm with a new sports network called ESPN," and Dick Vitale's like, "That sounds like a tropical disease."
Yeah, it really does. There's definitely better names for companies than ESPN. Uh, what does it even stand for anyway?
Entertainment and Sports Programming Network.
Oh, okay. Well, in recent years, they've kind of lost the entertainment part of that, but
Well, before we get on to NFL football, just one last thing for the Bad Movie of the Month segment. Audience, if you have any ideas for what we should watch or what you'd like for us to break down, you can message us. You could like us on Facebook at AM Sports Live and tell us all about it. You could reach out to me on Twitter at AM Sports Live 1 and tweet me your bad movie suggestions. Next month is already covered with Machete Kills, but this week is wide open, so go crazy.
what about some weeks we might not necessarily have to do movies, but we could also maybe do YouTube clips or just
Absolutely.
any sort of video. Like last week, we broke down the Eminem and Brent Musburger interview. We
That was like the most fun I've ever had on this show.
Right. I feel like this week we should do maybe Tom Cruise's infamous appearance on Oprah or
Now,
something.
the thing about that one is that's more of a visual thing. You have to see Tom Cruise jumping up and down on Oprah's couch to really appreciate that.
Well, yeah, but there's some funny stuff going on there too in terms of audio, and the listeners can cue it up when they're listening, also kind of sync it up with our broadcast. But yeah, well, either way, we'll figure it out, and yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad movie, although obviously it would be preferred. But there's definitely some clips out there that are worth breaking down.
Absolutely. So just send in your bad movie suggestions. We'll pick a new one every month, and the other weeks of the month we might pick YouTube clips or something to do. But now we're going to move on to football. Stuff happened in week 2. We're going to get you all caught up on everything you need to know in 30 or 35 minutes here because Matt's got stuff to do before he gets his hands on GTA 5. I've got stuff to do, so we're going to try and do this in roughly 30 minutes. Are you ready?
I was born ready.
Okay. This is our first topic, something I really wanted to start with because everybody's been talking about it. The Redskins. I don't know if they're good.
Well, and people are pointing. The scary thing is people are pointing to RG3 being rusty, not being as mobile as he was last year, and those are pretty valid points. But the real issue is the Redskins' offense. Their strength is running the football. When they're down 3 touchdowns in the first half, they can't really run the football and control the game. The real problem is their defense is letting up all these points. It's like Swiss cheese at this point. Now, granted, they did play the Eagles and the Packers, two of the better offenses in the NFL, but you're not going to win games when uh, the offense has to be put on the shoulder of RG3 without really any help from his running game.
Also, it bears mentioning because everybody was losing their minds over the Redskins last year, but it really bears mentioning that this was a team that was 3-6 at one point, and Mike Shanahan kind of alluded to some players not being there anymore, or he said something along the lines of we're going to have to make some major organizational changes after this year. So while everybody was not losing their minds over the Redskins, but kind of they were the favorite to win the NFC East. People were talking about, oh, how far can RG3 go this year? Everybody forgets that this wasn't really a good team last year.
No, they weren't, and well, like you said, they went on that 7 game winning streak at the end. But are we sure I don't know about the strength of schedule last year, but
I have it right here. They had Cleveland, they had Baltimore at home, and everybody forgets this, but before Baltimore was the Super Bowl champions, they were like a 10-16.
yeah,
They
yeah. Oh,
they needed the 4th and 29 play.
sure. Well, I think they went 9-7, right?
9-7, whatever they were. 2 games against Philadelphia, who by all accounts sucked last year.
Of course.
2 games against Dallas, where you just never know what you're going to get with Dallas, and 1 game against New York, or the Giants, where you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and they weren't particularly good last year either. And I guess we'll have to talk about the Giants' issues later on in the show because it looks like they've got a lot of the same problems that the Redskins do.
I'm just still kicking myself for not seeing the Redskins collapse coming. It's like all the signs were there. They had the quarterback coming back from injury, first place schedule, a really shaky offensive line. On all accounts, they screwed themselves by winning the division.
Yeah, it's true, and also it's their own fault that RG3 got hurt last year because the condition of that field was
They
just,
turned it into a horse track.
uh, and they can't blame anybody but themselves for that.
Yeah, they can blame the grounds crew for turning it into a horse track, and while that might have helped them against, like, Tom Brady and the Patriots, Seattle was running the ball 25 times a game with Marshawn Lynch. That's not going to help you against Seattle. So there's that. There's Shanahan sending RG3 back out onto the field.
Yeah.
There's Shanahan calling tons of read option plays for RG3. There's RG3 not learning to hook slide. There's just plenty of blame to go around for his injury. And I don't think we hear any of that now. It's, oh, he's rusty, or he's just getting back into the swing of it. He'll get stronger as the game goes along.
Well, it's true. He didn't take any snaps during the preseason, which I'm sure has an effect on you. Uh,
Oh, absolutely.
but being down 3 touchdowns in the first half is not all because of RG3.
Oh, of course not. There was a lot of poor play from the defense that went into that. I mean, like I said last week, I still don't know who covers anybody on Washington.
Yeah, I feel like their secondary may be one of the worst in the league.
Yeah, Reed Dowdy is a below average safety. D'Angelo Hall's fantastic when he has the ball in his hands, and absolutely horrible otherwise. They're just not a really good secondary, and by extension, they're not a really good defense.
Yeah, and it's clearly showing. And like I said, the Redskins' offense, their strength is running the football. And when you're down that many points, you can't run as much. You got to pass. And I'm not sure they're up to that. And we saw the last 2 weeks they're not up to that. So
Also, do you feel like opposing defenses, not just for the Redskins, but for the Niners, Seahawks, and whoever else does it, do you think they've figured out the read option a little bit?
well, so far, as we saw Sunday night with Kaepernick and Russell Wilson, and even before last week with Kaepernick, he's not running nearly as much as he was last year, and that can be said of most of the quote unquote running quarterbacks. I think it's a combination of coaches don't want their QBs to be hit as much as they were last year on the read option, it's a combo of the NFL kind of talking about changing the rules to, or did they change the rules? Did they change them, or are they just in talks to change the rules to change penalties for hitting quarterbacks?
I think it was for hitting ball carriers.
Right. So
I
they.
think the rule was aimed towards running backs.
Uh,
And to be perfectly honest, I think it's a dumb rule. I'm not even sure of the exact wording of it and where you can and can't hit them. I think it's like you have to hit them. You know how in baseball the strike zone is like belt. What is it? Belt to letters. I
uh,
think it's kind of a similar rule with running backs, where you can't hit
generally,
them in the head and you can't take out their knees anymore.
generally baseball's knees to letters, but yeah.
Knees to letters, my bad. But I think it's a dumb rule anyway because unlike hits on defenseless receivers, you can't really help yourself.
No, once they're going at a certain speed, it's almost impossible to stop.
Right.
Yeah, well, Goodell's all about player safety, so.
Well, I feel like with the zone replay, just getting back to that whole thing for a second, I feel like the value of it isn't so much running it anymore, it's leaving open the threat of running it and doing something else. Because if you watch that 49ers Packers game in week 1, the Packers are just going all out zone defense, contain on the outsides to stop it, and that just left an 8-yard pocket for Anquan Bolden to just slide into all game. Little space 8 yards downfield where you're just on the edge of a couple defenders' zones and you just have this cushion around you. So I feel like leaving it open as a threat is far more effective than just running it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But at a certain point, you've gotta run it, or else they just won't commit after a certain point, right?
Absolutely. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's like one game where the Niners or the Redskins just go back to running it as frequently as they were last year, just to kind of serve as a warning to the rest of the league, like, hey, we can still do this.
Yeah, well, and you see the Eagles actually. Vic is running it a decent amount too. It's a
Oh
little
yeah, I forgot about that.
it's a little bit of a different offense, you might say, but there's still read option plays and um, Vic is still doing what he always does, which is running at full speed and not sliding and taking terrible hits.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because we have to talk about the Eagles and the Chargers because that's probably. Did you say that was the best game of week 2?
Yeah, I would say. Well, out of all the games, I mean, maybe you could say Carolina Buffalo. EJ Manuel drives down.
But that wasn't really that entertaining until the last drive. It might have been Vikings Bears.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, you're right. Philadelphia, San Diego. Philip Rivers looked better than I've ever seen him look in 3, 4 years, maybe.
Yeah,
And
I was really disappointed because I always tune into the Chargers games every time they're losing big and he's getting sacked a bunch, so I could see his face turn bright red and like see him start yelling at somebody. That's
yeah,
always like the best part of every Chargers game.
oh yeah, definitely. The thing that bothers me here is that the Eagles, I think, deserve to win that game. I thought it was in the bag when they scored. I think they scored with like what 2 minutes left
Yeah,
to go up. Or
they didn't even go up. I think they tied, but I still felt like it was in the bag because I thought, all right, we know how this ends. Philip Rivers is going to do something dumb. The Eagles are going to kick a field goal, and we can all get out of here.
yeah, so and Vic was great, and Deshaun Jackson was great, and their offense was great, and obviously, I mean, they put up points, 30 points. What's the real problem for the defense? Everyone was talking about the Chip Kelly offense this offseason. What they now need to focus on is the defense because the defense shaky in week 1 against Washington. After the half, Washington scored what, like 27 straight points or something?
Yeah, 20, I think.
Or 20 points?
Yeah, something like that.
And then you can't trust them to hold a lead with 2 minutes left or whatever, and we saw that their defense. I think
No pass rush at
no
all.
no pass rush at all. their
there
sec
was a cornerback injury. Bradley Fletcher was down, so they had to put the slot guy, Brandon Boykin, on Eddie Royal, and I think Eddie Royal had a couple of inches on him.
yeah, it their defense is a big problem, and until they get that fixed, I don't know if we can take them seriously as a legitimate contender. If
Also, I was asked this by two or three friends who are Eagles fans to see if I could figure it out because they couldn't. What was with the timeouts at the end of the game?
uh with the with
Yeah, just
Chip Kelly
Chip
calling
Kelly
the
calling
timeout.
that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But let me preface this for any listeners who didn't see it because I didn't at first.
Yeah, no, I remember it. Yeah, yeah. You go ahead.
What happened was the Chargers were in range for a 48, 49-yard field goal, and they decided not to try and run another play to get it closer, which I thought was a big mistake. But they were content to let the clock run down from 20 seconds to 2 or whatever, then call timeout and try the game-winning field goal. But Chip Kelly and the Eagles had all three of their timeouts, and they started burning them immediately after every play to force the Chargers to run another play.
Right.
And the Chargers got like 2 or 3 yards closer.
No, they got like 5 or 6 yards closer, I believe.
Oh,
It was like a 47-yard field goal originally that they were gonna kick, and then Chip Kelly calling those timeouts allowed them to move up, I think, to about a 41 or 42-yard field goal, I believe.
yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what Chip Kelly was thinking there.
No, maybe he was thinking that the more plays that the offense runs, the more chance that maybe the defense can force a fumble or there'll be a bad snap or something. But that doesn't outweigh the risk of them moving closer. A 42-yard field goal looks a lot nicer than a 47-yard field goal to a kicker. I can guarantee you that.
Right. Well, I feel like maybe he was thinking. The devil's advocate view is maybe he was thinking, all right, we're playing the Chargers. Let's just give them a couple of extra chances to screw things up because something's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's probably.
Because I guarantee. Probably thought, Philip Rivers once fumbled a snap on a kneel down. Chargers blew the 21-point lead last week. You know what? I'm going to bet on history here.
Yeah, well, it's definitely possible. But I don't. Maybe he was just misinformed on how to use his timeouts, or he is a new coach in the NFL. But
Well, the ghosts of two of the greatest timeout butcherers of all time, Andy Reid and Norv Turner, were lingering above the stadium that day.
yeah, you think it had something to do with that?
Yeah, I think he said I gotta live up to Andy's legacy of botching timeouts. I only have 20 seconds to do it. The Eagles fans are already, getting a little bit excited that I'm using my timeouts rationally. So here we go.
Andy is coming to town Thursday.
Ooh, that's a good one. Actually, before we go any further into the NFL stuff, we should make our pick for that.
Yeah. So the Chiefs won 17-16 against Dallas, and it was pretty dominating defensively, I would say.
Oh yeah. Well, except for Des Bryant, they didn't really have an answer for Des Bryant.
No, no, not really. But besides that, they held Romo pretty much in check, and and Alex Smith made some plays with his legs, which was surprising in that game because you don't think of him as a mobile guy, but
He
then
is.
but then again, you go back to that playoff game against
The Saints.
the
Back in
Saints,
like
yeah.
2011, where he had that 30-yard rollout.
Yeah, and so I think he actually had like 57 yards rushing or something. And
Wow.
yeah, which was, I mean, from Alex Smith is incredibly surprising. And so yeah, I thought it was an impressive win, definitely. Uh, I mean, their offense obviously is kind of hit or miss, and Alex Smith is still kind of that game manager type. But yeah, and then the Eagles are reeling from this loss. What do you think this is a must win for the Eagles?
I don't think so. I feel like you can't really call any game a must-win for the Eagles because they were projected at 6-10 or 7-9. Obviously, they were kind of a sexy sleeper pick this year, but they were just kind of projected by SI and ESPN to be average. So even then, actually, let me check their schedule because I'm kind of curious about this now to see who they have coming up.
Yeah, but if you
because whoever is after this, they have a full 10 days to prepare for.
Yeah.
All right, page is loading because all right, my internet's a
little slow. They're at Denver.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're on the road for their next 3 after this. Then at New York, at Tampa.
Those are some tough games.
Like I'm not as down on Tampa as everybody else is. I still feel like they can be good.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Pats this Sunday, that's for sure.
Because you know that there's some revenge stuff there with Revis. I'm sure he still hates the Patriots.
Yeah, but back to the Eagles. This is why I think it might be a must-win. Aside from the fact that their schedule gets tougher coming up, they can't lose to Andy Reid in his return to Philadelphia, can they? I mean, that would just be, and Andy Reid goes to 3-0. They go to 1-2. That would be the ultimate. That would be the ultimate insult, wouldn't it?
It would, and I feel like the Eagles need to capitalize on this whole Chip Kelly offense thing before everybody starts figuring it out. Because if history's taught us anything, like with the Wildcat, with the zone read, with all the latest offensive innovations, the spread even, you have a year or two of real solid advantage over everybody else until defenses start catching up to you. And I feel like right now the Eagles have a unique advantage over everybody because nobody's figured out a solid way to stop the offense.
Yeah.
Once they figure out what they do to stop them, once they figure out, okay, just make them go on a 12 or 13 play drive and eventually they'll tire out by the end of the game or something along those lines, that advantage is not gone, but it's greatly diminished. So I feel like they need to start winning games early and get to 6-3 or get to 7-4 before teams start to flip that advantage back the other way.
Yeah, definitely they need to make hay when the sun shines, but
hay when the sun shines. That's a really good one. I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah. So, but the Chiefs are really good, I think, and I think the Eagles would obviously, besides the secondary, they miss a reliable number 2 when Jeremy Maclin went down. I think that was kind of a big blow because Deshaun Jackson, he was great. He had 200 yards receiving, but
they need a possession guy.
They need a possession guy, definitely.
They need to move the sticks, Anquan Bolden type.
Anquan Bolden would be perfect, I think. So what do you think? I think the Eagles win this one only because they can't let Andy Reid win in their own.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna take the Eagles here too. You've convinced me. Besides, I don't think there's any way Andy Reid goes 3-0.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
That would really be something. That'd probably be one of the biggest stories of the year. But we have 10 or 15 minutes left, and there were a couple of other games that I wanted to do. Oh, okay. Manning Bowl, Broncos Giants. I don't know if you noticed this, but the Broncos just look 2007 Patriots level unstoppable.
You don't have to tell me. Right down to the Wes Welker.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody before the season started who picked the Niners all said, oh, they're so angry over losing the Super Bowl and getting so close for the second straight year that they're just going to go into FU mode and start shutting people out and putting up 30 points and running tons of zone read. Everybody forgot about the Broncos. They had the most FU potential out of any team in the league because I hate to ruin the special Jacoby Jones catch moment here, but they should have been in the AFC Conference Championship against the Patriots. And not only did the Ravens deprive Manning of a Super Bowl chance at 36, 37 years old, but they also deprived Manning of going against Brady for what is potentially one last time.
Yeah,
So
and
I
also
feel like the Broncos are entered the season just pissed off, and they're saying, all right, fine, we're just going to put up 40 on everybody this year.
yeah, it looks that way. And like I said, they have well coming up. Denver has Oakland and
The
Philadelphia.
line can't go high enough on that game. It could be 20, and I'd still bet Denver.
Oakland and Philadelphia coming up the next two games, which two defenses that are like Swiss cheese. And yeah, there's a
Then
potential.
at Dallas, which could be a little bit tough. Home for Jacksonville, the easiest game anybody's ever
Wow,
faced.
yeah, they have an easy schedule,
At
man.
Indy, and I'm not sure Indy is that good.
No, I don't think so
Home for
either.
Washington, they could enter their bye 8-0 very easily.
Very easily.
And I feel like at New England, provided New England has themselves put together by that point.
I don't even want to say anything about it. We've
At Kansas City, week 13, and at Houston, week 16, in a potential meaningless game for Houston. It's the only three tough games on the Broncos' schedule. They could go 16-0.
Yes, but you remember back in Indy that one year the Colts started out I think 14-0, and then Manning was just he played very sparingly in the last two games, and
Yeah,
they ended up going 14-2. Like Manning's teams are notorious for winning like clenching the division, clenching the conference, and then
or
Manning just
taking the last 2 or 3 games off.
yeah, Manning just sits the last game off or the last two games off. So maybe it'll be different in Denver, but traditionally that's how it's worked, right?
Yeah, but he hasn't had, he's had different coaching staffs for most of his career than the one he has right now. I mean, you can't judge the behavior of Tony Dungy and the behavior of Jim Caldwell isn't really an indication of what John Fox is going to do. Because Peyton can definitely give his advice, but it's ultimately the head coach who decides whether he's going to go or whether he's not going to go. And if you remember the backlash that Caldwell took for depriving the world a chance of seeing another 16-0 team, I think that if John Fox says, you know what, we want to go for 16-0, we want to be better than the '07 Patriots, I don't think anybody's going to really say that's a bad reason.
Yeah, but the thing about trying to go 16-0 is by the end of it, and I know from watching the Pats that year, by the end of it they were burned out and they were tired of the pressure, and it's a lot to have on your plate
Well,
going.
I mean, I feel like we say burned out and tired of the pressure in retrospect, but if David Tyree doesn't hold that ball to his helmet, if Asante Samuel makes that pick, if 10 different things didn't conspire in the right order, and if the Pats had won that game, we would all be saying, hell yes, 16-0 in the Super Bowl was possible.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. You're right. But I felt like they weren't at the end of the season as dominant as they were as the beginning
That's true.
in the beginning.
I mean, yeah, they're not going to beat people by 40 every single time. Those performances that impressed you?
Two teams that impressed me. Well, I Miami was one of the teams at Indianapolis. They won 24-20, and I think there may be some change coming up in the AFC East. As sad as it is to say, Miami looks legitimately really good on defense, and I mean they were impressive Sunday, no question about it, beating the Colts, who were a playoff team last year. And another team that really impressed me was uh, um, hold on one second. Just let me look at the schedule. Oh, yes, Green Bay, of course. I came into the season after week one. They didn't look too good, and then they bounced back great against the Redskins. So I would say the Packers and the Dolphins were the two teams that really jumped out at me for being pretty dominating.
Well, two teams that jumped out at me that I haven't already mentioned. Number one would be Seattle. I mean, they just demolished the 49ers. They never had a chance in that game. There was nearly a shutout of what looked like a very prolific offense coming into this season. They forced Kaepernick's, I believe, his first multi-interception game. They shut down the zone read. Props to them. That was a fantastic win, and as their reward, they get to play the Jaguars at home this week.
Which is essentially a bye week.
Yeah, it's a no-show game. You could just kind of send the backups out there.
Oh, actually, I read that the line was actually they were Jaguars were getting 20 points, I believe.
I think it was 19 or 19 and a half on
Which
the sites that I visited.
which is one of the highest ever, right?
I think the highest ever. I could be wrong about this, but in 2007, when the undefeated Patriots played the winless Dolphins, it was 21 in favor of the Pats.
Oh, okay. But wouldn't you take the points? Winning by 3 touchdowns, really?
It feels like a backdoor cover to me. It feels like the Seahawks just came off the biggest win of the last 2 years. I don't think they're going to play that well on Sunday, or if they do, they'll get out to a 21-0 or 28-0 lead earlier and then kind of send in the scrubs. So I kind of think that the Seahawks are going to win, but I feel like the Jags are going to get set up for a nice backdoor cover.
Right. Another team that impressed you.
Another team that impressed me. The Patriots. No, they
Ah,
impressed me.
yeah.
Well, I don't want to say this team because I already mentioned them, but screw it. The Broncos. They just look fantastic. They kind of look like the Niners looked in the first couple of weeks of last year. Every year there's a team that in the first couple of weeks just lets everybody know that we're the team to beat this year. And sometimes that team keeps it going throughout the season, sometimes they don't. But it's always one team that kind of sets itself apart, and I feel like that's what the Broncos are doing this year. So I'm really in on them. I love their wide receivers, love what Peyton's doing, and I'm excited to see if they can challenge the '07 Pats.
It's a tall order, but if there's any team right now that could do it, it would be them.
All right, now let's do the flip side of the coin. Two teams that disappointed you.
Two teams that disappointed me. Well, the Lions are one, and not it's because they were up big early. Their offense looked nearly unstoppable against the Cardinals, and then all of a sudden, Carson Palmer leads the Cardinals back, scores with like 4 minutes left, and the offense of the Lions just went cold in the second half, and it's sad because I was really high on the Lions this year, but uh, the way they gave up the lead like that worried me a little bit about their defense, um, and another team that wasn't really impressive was I would probably have to say the Panthers because this is another thing. They were they were up the whole game. Cam Newton led them to a late touchdown. They looked like they were going to win, and then EJ Manuel drives all the way down the field, scores with 1 second left on the clock. And this is another thing: the Panthers' defense, they can't be counted to hold a lead.
Well, actually, I have a very interesting statistic about that. Here's the statistic. I believe it's 8 times since Cam Newton has been there. 8 times the Panthers have entered the fourth quarter with a lead and have lost the game. I think it's double the the second team that's done that most frequently.
Yeah, and it definitely seems that way. Like I wouldn't look at that stat and be like, no way, because that's it
Their
definitely.
secondary is just awful, and actually they just lost their safety Charles Godfrey for the year.
Yeah, I don't think, and they were a trendy sleeper pick coming into the year, but until they get that figured out, there's really I don't see them contending in that division.
I actually want to see the Patriots and Panthers play each other. I'm excited for that game because I want to see who can blow it the most in the fourth quarter.
Oh man, that would be a tough one. I can't call that, but
All
yeah.
right. Well, two teams that disappointed me. Number one, my sleeper pick of the year, and I'm not abandoning you. I'm just telling them step it up. Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
I should have known. First of all, I probably should have known better than to take the alliance of Brandon Whedon and North Turner. But what makes them so hard to ditch is they have a good team. And their defense has done very, very well over the first 2 weeks. Joe Thomas, best left tackle in the league. They're getting Josh Gordon back. Jordan Cameron's doing some things. But I've never seen this good of a team be single-handedly destroyed by this awful of a quarterback. And usually the bad quarterback is already on the bad team. So it's like, it really wouldn't make too much of a difference if they had an average one. But if you switched Brandon Whedon with Matt Schaub, the Browns would be a playoff team. No doubt about it.
replay.
And I'm disappointed that Brandon Whedon's dragging them down.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm sure in this draft, if they end up, I think they'll end up probably picking someone in this draft, right? They can't stick with Whedon any longer.
Oh, that would be a travesty. They're probably going to be good enough to play themselves out of the Teddy Bridgewater sweepstakes. So, yeah, I really don't know. Maybe you try and get Taj Boyd. I hate to kick off the premature Johnny Manziel draft speculation, but maybe do you take a chance on him? Like, he can't possibly be worse than Brandon Whedon, right?
No, I don't think so.
All
I
right, so... Oh, sorry.
I don't know. It's fine.
All right. Let's see. That's one team that disappointed me. Well, I mean, I guess I could take the cop out and say the Jaguars, but I wasn't really expecting much, so I can't really be disappointed. Um, let's see. Second team that disappointed me. I'm actually gonna say Washington Redskins. And I know that this is the second cop-out in a row because we already mentioned the Redskins, but
What is Citizen Kane the greatest movie of all time? Also, or
well, I'm sorry. I at least expected the Redskins to keep things close or have an entertaining offense. It kind of like the Eagles, where they're kind of a mediocre team, but you're like watching them for RG3s on offense. You're switching to their games. I was excited for that, and not only have the Redskins lost, but they've been boring about it.
yeah, it's true. You're right. Again, they've been down big in the first half, and they've got to play catch up, and there's not really any.
Like RG3 will throw those garbage time touchdowns when the defense is shifted into prevent and the safety's playing 25 or 30 yards back.
Yeah, there's not any
It's
rhythm there.
Yeah, well, it's just sad. I hope the Redskins return to prominence soon. But anyways, I think that's all the time we have for this episode of AM Sports Live because I know that you've got a lot of homework to do. I've got some work to do myself. But before we go, anything you want to plug? Anything you want to say to our new listeners?
No, just on Friday, listen to the show. We're gonna be doing some picks for the NFL games on Sunday, and maybe we'll break down some sort of a YouTube clip. We'll have to iron that out. But yeah, I
Bad movie or YouTube clip,
yeah,
maybe some other stuff. Also, apologize to the viewers for the lack of variety in our content recently. We've been excited about football starting. We've been doing a lot of NFL stuff, but we promised Ray, the baseball person among our friends, that when the MLB playoffs start, we'll have him on to discuss baseball. Once basketball starts, we'll be doing a lot of stuff with that. And obviously, once Machete Kills comes out, we're going to have a special show entirely dedicated to breaking
absolutely.
down Machete Kills. But, yeah, so it's not just all football here. It just happens to be that way for the first couple weeks of the season.
Yep. I'm excited for that.
All right, so before we leave, just like us on Facebook, AM Sports Live. Follow us on Twitter at AM Sports Live 1. Email questions or bad movie suggestions to amsportslive@gmail.com. And don't forget to like the National Sports Network on Spreaker.com or like National Sports on YouTube. And if you want to drop us comments, even after the show is over, I believe the commenting option still works, even for recorded shows. So you can do that. We'll read it and we'll respond to it. So, I believe that's all the time we have. That's all the content we wanted to cover. And we will be back here on Friday. Your September 17th edition of AM Sports Live is now off the air. So